This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
While this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Of our federal partners who have come into the city to really help us assess and deal with the crime, some of the crime spikes that we have, we will work alongside them.
It's very important that people know that there is underlying legislation that needs to be corrected.
Well, federalizing the D.C. police, an effort by President Trump and his administration to crack down on violent crime here in the district. The House Minority Leader, Jeffries, putting out a post saying violent crime in D.C., Washington, D.C. is at a 30-year low. Donald Trump has no basis to take over the local police department and zero credibility on the issue of law and order. Get lost, according to the House Minority Leader. We're going to go into the numbers and talk about this and other things with our panel. Let's bring in Katie Pavlich, Fox News contributor, Politico White House Bureau Chief Dasha Burns, and Byron York, Fox News contributor. Byron, you look at the crime stats, and there has been a reduction year over year. If you put them up on the board, violent crime down, property crime down, all crime. However, there are, so far this year, 98 murders, on track to be about 170. It'll be fewer, perhaps, than last year. Still significant.
That's the difference between Trump and the Democrats here, is because the main case from Democrats has been, why is the president doing this? Because crime is actually falling here. And Trump is saying, look, there were 274 murders in 2023. That's a bad COVID year. Next year, 187. This year, you said about 170. And the people in the district are saying, well, that's good. That's good. It's going down. And Trump is saying, 170 is still a lot of murders. We can do better than this. And so I think the thing to remember about people living in almost all neighborhoods of the district, the presence of crime, property crime and violent crime, is a quality of life issue for them. And there are a lot of people who are scared of crime.
Yeah, I mean, Dasha, you heard about it on the story. A mother of a murdered congressional intern spoke out about today's announcement.
He had multiple gunshot wounds, so it was not one bullet, which is even more horrific. I looked at Eric's ashes, and I said, Eric, you haven't died in vain. Things will change so other people are safe when they go visit D.C. or work in D.C. And that's my goal, to make people safe.
Yeah, so emotional. Anytime you lose somebody, any murder is unacceptable. But to hear that emotion on this day is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and for the president, this is something that hits home because he is a visual person, and the visuals of, we saw him driving to his golf course and seeing those homeless encampments. We also see him connect to individual stories like what you just heard there, and he likes a quick win. And when I was talking to the White House today, they were really painting this as sort of a 30-day blitz. They want to get in, they want to federalize the police department, they want to really show some serious progress over the next 30 days, and that's really the limit that they have. The challenge that they're going to face is the D.C. Council. They can do a lot with the police force and with the National Guard, but there are a lot of things that they can't change that the D.C. Council is in control over, and how the president in places like D.C. and potentially other cities where he wants to see improvements works with Democrats is going to be a major question. But this certainly puts him and the White House on comfortable footing and allows them to have Democrats on the back foot on the issue of crime, which is a long pattern with Republican and Democratic politics.
Yeah, that's right. And you heard Judge Jeanine Pirro about changing the law to be able to go after some of these young gangs, especially, that commit horrible crimes.
And the president said today he wants to rely on Republicans in Congress to change some of this, and he's on constitutional footing as well. D.C. is a federal district. He has the authority to do this, although it's unprecedented. He's saying this experiment of allowing D.C. to govern itself on the issue of crime needs to be over, at least for a period of time, because it's not working. On the statistics that people keep citing about crime going down, a police commissioner was just put on leave for allegedly cooking the books on the data, saying that crime was down. When if you walk around and live in the city for years, you can feel that there is crime right around the corner, literally, in a lot of these places.
Let me just put that up. A D.C. police commander suspended, accused of changing crime statistics. allegedly making changes to crime statistics in his district. The union claims police supervisors in the department manipulate crime data to make it appear violent crime has fallen considerably compared to last year.
Right. So you have people, like the mayor, for example, Mayor Bowser, citing crime is down. Well, if the numbers aren't accurate, is it really down? The other thing is that the DC Crime Lab in 2021 lost its accreditation and was unable to do evidence. Conduct evidence reviews in this lab for 5 years. They just got that accreditation back this year in 2025, which meant that 66% of cases that needed to be tested in that lab couldn't be, and therefore they weren't prosecuted. So it's a combination of cooking the books and not prosecuting crime. And you can say, well, crime is down, but if you just walk around and talk to your friends and family who live here, they're victims of crimes, they're afraid to go out at nighttime, they're afraid to go out in the middle of the day, and the president is saying enough, especially ahead of the 250th anniversary of the Celebration of America, which is coming next summer.
Yeah, a lot of reaction from all over on this move. Meantime, the president getting ready for this meeting in Alaska with Vladimir Putin on Friday, asked about that today.
We're going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind. And if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders, and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first, and then I'll call them after. And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting, or I may say we can make a deal.
It seems optimistic. By the way, we're taking a special report on the road to Anchorage, to Alaska for that trip, and I have a kind of behind-the-scenes look at all of that. But it seems like he's optimistic, but to have just Putin, it's not Zelensky and Putin.
Yeah, it seems optimistic, but he knows, the president knows, he's been jerked around by Putin already on this, so I'm not sure he's that confident about it. And he said that he'll probably know in 2 minutes whether Putin really wants to make a deal or not. So it could be a 2-minute summit for all we know. But this is going to have to come down. The settlement is going to have to come down to the cession of territory. Ukraine is going to have to give up something. And right now, Zelensky is saying absolutely no way. The Europeans are backing him up. And it's not clear what you can actually get out of Putin in this situation. So this may really be a pretty short affair.
We'll see. As to your point, Zelensky on X posts, Ukrainians will not gift their land to the occupier. The answer to the Ukrainian territorial question already is in the Constitution of Ukraine. No one will deviate from this, and no one will be able to. Ukrainians will not gift their land to the occupier. Here's General Keane on that.
The part that Putin wants is the so-called fortified belt. 5 Ukrainian cities, all fortified along a 50-mile route. Putin could get this conciliatory, not having to fight for it, go to a ceasefire. You know he's going to violate a ceasefire. He has always violated them in the past, and he would be in a much better position to really grab off some territory inside of Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, Dasha, everybody's saying, what is Zelensky going to give up? But what is Putin going to give up is also a question here.
Well, this is such a pivotal moment for President Trump because he's talked about how he's felt tapped along by Putin for a long time. This is the moment where he sits across the table from him. And everything that I'm hearing from White House allies and from folks inside the White House is that this is going to come down to the president's instincts. And if he can suss out what Putin's intentions actually are, and whether that means that there's going to be progress, this is that moment. This is the inflection point in this war. This is that summit. And Zelensky's not going to be at the table. That means they're not going to walk away, handshake, deal, done. But this is going to be the fork in the road moment.
Katie?
I think the president is also going to go there and talk to Putin and say, things are going to get worse for you. We've seen him squeeze him economically by putting sanctions on India for buying Russian gas. You had this EU trade deal that he did, getting $750 billion in new energy, taking energy sources away from Russia, purchasing. That's a huge part of their economy. He's threatened to put additional sanctions onto the Russian economy. So he's going to ask him if he's willing to take that economically, and then we'll see what happens. But
yeah, and there's a 90-day extension on the China trade talks right now, announced today, but they're also in the business of buying Russian oil. And should that increase on that side, one would think Russia would feel a pretty big squeak.
Well, but Trump actually has to pull the trigger on these economic measures that he can enforce. Yes, he has with India, but other than that, he really hasn't. And Congress hasn't acted in the way that they have been talking about acting with the secondary sanctions. So at some point, Trump is going to have to threaten and then do it if Putin resists.
Okay, panel, thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.